What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pave the Way. On this week's show, we have a good friend and mentor of mine, Mr. Chris Gardner. Chris started his life off as a missionary before transitioning into a financial advisor role, and he's now a philanthropic strategist. Now, I know it's a big word, but all that means is that he helps people make charitable contributions in the most efficient way possible. As always, if you find any value in our show, please subscribe, share, and like. Now let's dive in.
Welcome to Pave the Way.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. This week we have my good friend Chris Gardner here. Chris is a friend and a mentor of mine. We met together about 3 years ago. We met at a networking group. Chris can tell you all about networking if you ever get the chance to talk to him. He worked as a financial advisor, and now he's a philanthropic strategist, which I read that book you gave me, Jeff Thomas, the dude you're working for. He basically just helps people put their money, like if you want to make a charitable contribution, they have like marginal loans and ways to make the taxes work out where they can help you do that the best. But Chris has been a friend of mine for over 3 years now, and he was somebody I was really excited to have on our show. So thanks for coming on, man. Can't wait for everybody to hear your story. You know, this guy, he serves as a pastor. He's been a missionary. Like, don't want to give it all away, but just thank you so much for being on.
Absolutely, man. Love it. Anytime I'm invited by you guys, I'm always going to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
We appreciate it,
so
man.
basically, tell us a little bit about where you came from. I know some of your story already, that you lived in a different country for a little while and, you know, had a lot of good experiences out there, but, you know, break it down. I know you have family and faith really important to you. So.
Sure. So I'll start with philanthropic strategist. Everybody in the world's like, what in the world is that?
I can't even say that.
I can't even say it. There's too many syllables. Yeah. Well, a philanthropic strategist is someone who has a strategy for how you're going to give money away. I believe money is an asset that God gives us, but he doesn't give us to own it. He gives us to steward it.
Yeah,
and so that's philanthropic strategist, is helping people realize that. I tell people, most people set their lives up to where they leave a legacy, but they don't ever think about the fact that they ought not leave a legacy. They ought to live a legacy. To live a legacy takes planning today. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about the day that I pass away. It's about the day doing something. And so I'm the guy that sits down with them, and we go through it and talk about their dreams and talk about what they want, and of course help them save as a financial advisor, help them invest. But even more than that, we go, hey, now it's time to start giving away. And the thing that most excite people is like, hey man, I get to give. The Bible says it's more blessed to give than to receive. Well, think about this. It's more blessed to give than to receive. So wait till you die till you do a lot of it. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So we teach them, we're like, hey, let me show you how to give today, what to do today so that you can live this life instead of leave this life as someone that's impacted the world. So that's kind of the idea. And
I love that.
And in the book, I had read about all those groups that he had been mentored by and everything. So to bring that, you know, basically to bring God, kind of like what we did in our business, just putting God right in the center there. Yeah. It's, that's really cool, man. And to get to do that every day, it's got to be fun.
It is. And, you know, we get to work with people that have, you know, there's some people that have set some incredible examples for us, like the owner of Hobby Lobby and how much money he gives away every year. He lives on a salary, and then the rest of the money goes, like they have to have meetings to decide where the millions of dollars go
to give.
Man,
to
I
give.
love that.
That's amazing.
And so he gives it to missions. He gives it, so those kind of things, you know, it's just, I cannot even explain how excited I am to be doing a job where I get to do that, because it merges both worlds, the world I came from and the world I'm in now. As a financial advisor, a lot of times it's all about the bottom line. It's like, hey man, how much money are you making? What are you doing? What do you, and for us, it's totally different. For us, the questions we ask is, so how much money have we enabled others to give today? So those are the numbers we like talking about. Is it's like, man, this much money was given away to help different 501c3s to help different needs. And so I grew up as a missionary. At the age of 13, my dad moved from the States to Mexico to learn Spanish. So we lived in Mexico for a year. And then from Mexico, we moved to Peru.
Wow.
And ministered there.
Wow.
And people don't understand how, you know, how I can understand people that have no money and people that have a lot of money. And the reason is because I would sit down at tables with my dad with a lady who was giving money out of her Social Security just to make sure that the ministry in Peru would continue going.
Wow.
And then for dinner, I'd be sitting down with a guy that was going to be stroking a 6-figure check. And I was 13, 14 years old, just sitting there dealing with people from all different sides and watching people whose mindset and their goal was to do something that impacts the kingdom. And so, that's kind of my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So you were 13 years old and you end up just moving. Like, when you were in middle school and they just said, we're going to Peru?
And they didn't ask me. It was kind of like, hey, you're in middle school. You know, most people move. They're like, hey, I moved from this house to this house. And I did. I moved from this house to this house, from this zip code to that zip code, from this country to that country. And so, I still remember we were, we knew no Spanish at all, no Spanish at all. And we drove to Mexico. And so we had a Suburban and drove from Georgia to through Texas, down through the border, and went all the way down to Querétaro, Mexico. So it was pretty crazy. I still remember the first night we stayed at a Holiday Inn in Mexico, and the parking lot was this little tiny parking lot, and it had gates all around it. And I was like, Dad, this is weird. He goes, no, it's not weird. This is Mexico. Yeah. And so that weird became my normal. I tell people, I may look like this on the outside, but you peel me, I'm about 100% Peruvian.
Man, I love that.
So were y'all like setting up churches? Was it kind of already in a ministry established in Peru, or did y'all kind of like, lead that push?
That's a great question. So when my dad went to Peru, let me give you a little backdrop of Peru first, just so you can get an idea of the country we arrived in. Well, number one, the weather's difficult. It's the driest desert in the world. And so everybody's like, oh man, driest desert. When I say that, you think hot. But we lived at 8,000 feet above sea level.
Wow.
When you think mountains, you think cold. Guess what happens when you put hot and cold together?
It's perfect.
Perfect. But only all year round. And so,
we're going to Peru.
So the funny thing is, we don't have a weatherman in Peru. Not in Peru, the city that we come from, because not all of Peru is like this. The city that we went to live in is the city of Arequipa. And in the city, we don't have a weatherman. And Americans would go, why don't you have a weatherman? I'd be like, because a weatherman wouldn't be a weatherman if he was always right. So he literally 70-degree weather all day, every day. At night, it gets down to 55. So a little sweater, something like that.
That's right up my alley right there.
Yeah, right up. And
I'm sure you miss that every now and then.
Oh my goodness!
Just leave the windows open, man. You could just sleep with the
we
windows
don't
open.
have air conditioner.
Yeah.
We don't have air conditioner. People are like, oh, you're suffering for Jesus. I'm like, no, you are. You have to use an air conditioner.
Yeah.
I don't. So, so moved down to Peru. There were other missionaries there. The city of Arequipa was considered the graveyard of modern missions, because it was a very, very, very entrenched in their belief city. And ended up, my dad went down there, and there was another missionary had started a church, had a little bit less than 10 people going to church at this small church. And he told my dad, he said, we have two options. Either the church closes when I leave to go to the States for a year, or you can take it over. And my dad was like, I don't want to take it over. And he goes, no, he says, so it's fine. So I just tell the people, we're closing the church, right? How do you say yes to that? Mm-hmm. My dad's like, okay, I'll take it over for 1 year. So he started working in the church, and man, God started blessing. We saw so many people get saved. So many lives get changed. My dad had one young man come to sit down with him and talk to him one day. And he said, Brother Gardner, I need to talk to you. And he said, yeah, what's up? He goes, well, I just want to let you know that I was part of a terrorist movement and the communist movement. And I was sent here to this church to infiltrate the church. And my job was going to be to kidnap your children.
Good grief.
To be able to get money from you. And so that you'd be able to help our cause out. Of course, they thought Americans, they got a lot of money, which my dad didn't have a lot of money, but that's what they thought. But I came to church and I got saved, and I don't know how to get out of this now. What do I do? So here my dad is giving him a strategy on how to deal with the people and tell them, hey, we're not kidnapping the kids anymore because I'm like one of them now. You know? And so all kinds of crazy stories. And in that time, the Shining Path was in Peru. And the Shining Path, they call it the ISIS of South America.
Oh, wow.
It was really, really bad. A man named Abimael Guzman taught college kids. And when he taught these college kids, they'd get all excited and all fired up, and they'd go out and they would wreak havoc. We've had bombs go off across the street from our house. It was just a normal thing. Bombs going off all the time, that kind of stuff. But man, God protected us through it all, and I'm still here today and put a pretty thick hide on us. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's your journey through Peru is how long? How long were you there?
A total of close to 30 years.
30 years total?
It's close to 30 years.
That's amazing.
25 years.
25
Oh,
years.
no wonder Peru is a part of you.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. And at 13,
Yeah.
Yes.
you didn't think that.
Did
Yeah,
you
I mean,
meet your
that's-
wife in Purdue also?
No. So I was in Peru and I came back to the States. I didn't know why I came back to the States. I just knew that my dad told me, he says, Chris, you're 18 now. When I turned 18, I took over a church. Started pastoring Lighthouse Baptist Church. But you asked about the churches. There were not many churches in the city of Arequipa, and now I could show you a map. There's dots everywhere where churches
So
have
it
been
started
started.
spreading. Let's
Yeah.
go.
And so we've now got a Bible college, a TV station, a radio station. We've had all of that as part of the ministry down there. Having a language school, an orphanage, just all kinds of stuff that God's allowed different people to come in. And through the ministry in Peru, we've sent missionaries from Peru. Because see, we tell people if the Bible isn't true for everyone, then the Bible's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the Bible says, go into all the world and preach the gospel. Mm-hmm. Well, if it says that and it means that for you, but it doesn't mean it for the guy next to you because he's too poor, then God's not really God. He's just kind of preferential and saying, hey, you do that, but the rest, nobody else cares about that. So my dad actually believed that if the Bible says go to all the world and preach the gospel in English, in Spanish it said, por tanto, y por todo el mundo y predicar el evangelio a toda criatura. And so he said, you can say amen there because that didn't say
that
the
was
real
smooth,
thing.
man.
So my dad would stand up and he'd be like, here's the deal, guys. I don't know how we're going to do it, but God said you're supposed to go around the world and preach the gospel. So how are we going to do that? And we, through that, sent missionaries from Peru to Burkina Faso, Morocco, which is a closed country, Tunisia, all over the world. God has just opened doors and done some amazing stuff with some of the most incredible men that I know of. So I was 18 years old. I forgot to answer that question. I get passionate about this. So
that's okay, man. I
I
love
answered
it.
that one now again. So Rob, as I was going to, I was 18 years old. I was in Bible college, and my dad said, Chris, there's a church that needs a pastor, and you need to consider going to pastor it. I'm like, I'm 18 years old. What in the world am I going to do? But I went over and I started pastoring Lighthouse Baptist Church.
Where's that at?
In Arequipa, the city of
Okay.
city of Arequipa is 1.5 million people. So it's a big city. 1.5 million people, and so it's up there next to the airport there in Arequipa, and I started pastoring this church and started loving the people and took over the church. There was a total of about 4 people that went to church there. It was awesome, and couldn't get the church to grow.
Very intimate.
Very intimate. I tell people are, as an American kid, I was like, well, I know how church is supposed to be, so I'm going to do church like that. So I'd stand up, and guess who led the music?
You did.
Guess who should never lead music?
You.
Me. I should never lead music. But I'd stand up and I'd lead music, and then I'd be like, now we're going to pick up the offering, and I'd be singing while I'd be taking the offering plates to the people. Like, it's pretty pathetic.
That took all of what, 30 seconds?
Well, exactly. It was pretty
Short songs.
crazy.
Yeah.
But I still remember we had the church wasn't growing. I was working as hard as I could. The church wouldn't grow. I was working. I was going to Bible college, knocking every door that I could, begging people to come to church. Nobody was coming to church. And there was always a drunk guy that was laying outside the church building. When I say a drunk guy, I'm talking like drunk guy, like laying in his vomit, drunk. They'd been there all night. And every single Sunday, I'd pick him up. And I would take him to his house. Sometimes he wouldn't have pants on, shirt on, like literally carry him, walking barely to his house. And every single Sunday, he'd look up and he goes, Chris, nobody loves me. And I said, no, you're wrong. I said, God loves you. And you realize only a crazy preacher that loved you would be doing this, right? And he goes, yeah. And I'd go and I'd help his mom get him in bed and go. And before long, he came to church. We had 4 people going to church. So when think about it. You have a 5th guy walk in, your church just grew by 25%, man. Like when you're writing letters back to the States, our church has grown by 25% over the last month, you know. But we're sitting there, and I still remember he walks in. We're about 75% done with him with the preaching, and he walks in, and I was like, I've never seen him without him being drunk. Mm-hmm. This is different. And so I stood up front and I was like, I don't care. He will not leave here today without hearing the gospel.
Yeah.
So I just stopped what I was preaching. And he didn't know I stopped. I kind of like went from one thing and I was like, here's what the Bible says about salvation. And so I started, I gave it to him. I gave it to him straight on. And of course, he doesn't know what the normal thing to do at church is, you know, because we have this protocol of this is how church is handled. You know, you do this and then you do this. And so I'm in the middle of talking, and Juan goes, I was like, we're not in school. You're not supposed to like raise your hand. I didn't say anything to him. I was like, yeah. He goes, can you just shut up and tell me how to be saved? And so it took him up, and he got saved. And
you were 18?
I was 18.
I love that.
And man, the story gets so much better because he got saved and his life got changed. We started having visitors at church all the time. And it was funny because these ladies were bringing their boys in. And they come in. I would have people come on Saturdays and they'd go, hey, Father. Now, remember how old I am, right? I'm 18 years old. Hey, Father. I'm like, no, I'm not a father. You know, because I'm not Catholic. And there's a Catholic society, and they go, hey, Father. No, my name's Chris. They go, Father Chris. I'm like, no, just Chris. And so they're sitting there talking to me, and she goes, is this the place where Juan was changed? And I go, are you the one that changed him? I go, yeah, no, I didn't change him, but this is where he found Jesus. Man. And it was funny. The next day she'd come in, and she was like a drill sergeant standing at the door. Her boys would walk in the church that way. Our church grew after Juan got saved. 150, 200 people come to church.
Wow.
Because this young man was known by all the whole neighborhood knew who this horrible human being of the man that just wreaked havoc in the neighborhood. He got saved. His life got changed.
That's amazing.
And so I was 18, had seen God do some amazing stuff. One of Juan's best friends got saved. He's now a pastor here in the States. And when that happened, we sent him off to start a second church. By the time we had left, we had 3 different churches going. And I was 18 or 19 back then. And Dad goes, son, you need to go to the States to visit and tell American churches what you're doing so they can get on board with you and help you out financially to be able to start churches. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, Dad. He goes, well, you're leaving Friday. I already bought the tickets. I didn't know, but the reason he did that was he didn't think that the girl that I was dating was the right girl for me to marry. Oh. And so he didn't tell me that. And I asked him, I was like, why didn't you tell me? He goes, because you're one of the most hard-headed human beings I've ever known. Yeah. I don't know about that. Anyway, that's what he said. So I flew back to the States. I was supposed to be here for 3 months. And 2 months and 1 week in, I get my first Dear John phone call.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, it's been nice. Now, I've been traveling church after church after church. Every pastor's like, so do you have a girlfriend? Because, man, I'm an 18-year-old that has started church.
I'm an eligible church world.
In the church world, I was like, it's slim pick, like
the bachelor, man. Did you have a rose ceremony?
I should have had a rose ceremony. But everywhere I went, I was like, nope, no, I'm not interested. I have this girl, and 3 weeks before I came, she broke up with me right at the beginning of February. And
3 weeks before you came back home?
Yeah. Think about it until I went back to Peru.
Yeah,
home. Yeah. And so think about February. You know what February is, right?
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. My life felt like the worst country song ever. I'm talking about, I felt
God
like
bless
if you
the
were
broken road, kind of
exactly.
Asaphat.
I was like, if you'd play my song backwards, I'm done. I'd get my girl back, I'd get my truck back, I'd get my dog back. You know, like it was bad. Walking to Walmart, Americans, y'all celebrate everything. So you walk everywhere, there's hearts everywhere, and
Oh, yeah.
all I wanted to do was find Cupid and wring his neck. You know, and ended up I was preaching a Valentine's banquet, and I ended up meeting I ended up going to the church, good friend of my dad's. And when I was walking to the church, there was a girl playing the piano. My girlfriend in Peru played the piano. And went back to the church parsonage, and pastor was up there, and he said, "Did you see anybody down there you liked? Ha, 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 ha." And I was like, if this guy knew, I have no desire. I don't have a desire to pet a dog, much less to date right now. Like the word love ain't nowhere near me, and I don't know how I'm preaching a Valentine's banquet tonight. But ended up, I just making fun of him. I go, "What about your piano player?" Because one thing, pastors don't want to lose their piano player.
Yeah.
And so he looked at me, he goes, "That's the best girl in my church." I was like, "Oh no." I didn't know she was 70 or 7. I had no idea who she was. And, ended up, we went to the restroom, and then he called me. He goes, "Hey, Chris." "Yes, sir." He says, "I called Andrea. She's going to go to the banquet with you tonight." I'm like, Lord, help me. Who in the world, in a small country church of 120, 150 people, who in that kind of a church doesn't have a date for the Valentine's banquet?
Yeah, especially if she's the best one in the church.
If she's the best, yeah. Because when a pastor says she's the best one,
You were expecting to see some.
exactly. Have you ever been to church when they say, "Don't listen to the way I sing it, but listen to the words"?
Yeah.
You know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
When they sing it, you're going to be like, "You shouldn't be singing that.
it's
Why don't you
gonna be
just
out of tune.
read it? That'd be
Yeah.
better." So we're sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, no." He said, "She's going to go to the banquet with you tonight." I was like, No, she's not." He said, "I didn't ask you. I've already told her. Y'all are going to sit across from each other." I was like, "Whatever." He goes, "Do you want to, you want a place to stay the night? I'll get you a hotel room." "No, sir. I have an appointment. I got to get out of here as soon as the Valentine's banquet is over." I promise you I had no. And ended up meeting her that night, and spent about an hour and a half talking to her. And I called my dad that night from the States to Peru. Cost me like, I don't know, it was like 50 cents a minute back then to call from here to there. And I called him and I said, "Dad, I honestly think I just met the girl I'm going to marry."
Wow.
And next month it'll be 28 years. So
Man,
So you ended up marrying her.
I ended up marrying her, 28 years, 4
Yeah.
kids.
she still played piano.
Oh, so we built our entire house around her baby grand piano. You walk in our front door, and over on the left-hand side is the baby grand piano.
Wow.
I sit out on Saturdays while she's practicing. She does music at our church, and while she's practicing on Saturday nights, I'm looking over my message for the next day, just listening to music in the background. The girl can play.
And I guess that means
love
that
the
she
piano.
moved to Peru.
Oh, she moved to Peru. We got married in June.
How'd you talk her into that?
To go to Peru?
Yeah.
Oh, she went to Peru to visit. First time she'd ever left the country. First time she told me, she says, I said, "So have you ever been out of the country?" She goes, "No." Like, that's a weird question. Why would you ask that? We're not talking, Americans are like, "Well, I've been to Mexico." I'm like, "Really? Where?" "Cancun." I'm like, "No, you ain't been to Mexico. That ain't Mexico." She hadn't been on vacation anywhere, nothing like that. And I said, "You know what? You ought to go to Peru to visit me." And it was 3 weeks until I was leaving. She said, "Okay." So in those 3 weeks, I let her meet my mama, my papa, my grandmama, my granddaddy, my mom and my dad, all of them on the phone. "Chris, does she have enough money to be able to go?" I was like, "No." They're like, "We're going to take care of that." I think they saw me as a pity party,
Yeah.
So ended up, I wrote her first check to go get her passport because she didn't have a passport. And then my parents wrote her a check, and my grandparents wrote her a check, and my mama and papa wrote her a check, and then we got married the next year in June.
In Peru or here?
No, here.
Very
We
cool.
got married here in June, and then we moved to Peru in January.
Wow. What a cool love story.
Yeah.
How does it, so I'm just so interested in the Peru thing because even in the Bible study this morning, I was kind of talking about it. There's just times where you have the feeling that you just want to go do more for the kingdom of God, and it's got to be such a cool lifestyle for that to be all you think about essentially. It's also got to be the challenging to a certain degree. So what are some of the things that we don't see, looking at missionaries who are abroad? Like, what are the challenges that come with that? Because I imagine there's got to be a lot of challenges.
Yeah, so I don't think most people understand America is in no way a perfect country. But until you've moved overseas and you've seen it's like, I thought that I had it bad until you go to somebody else's house and you're like, okay, I ain't got it bad anymore. I thought, what I'm saying with that is this: in America, we turn the radio on to listen to Christian music and decide which station we want to listen to. Mm-hmm. In Peru, you don't turn the radio on if you want to listen to Christian music, because we don't have that. There's the influence that the gospel has given us in America is still felt every day. Americans don't know that. Okay, Americans really don't know that because they don't understand that that's what it is. For example, how in the world can you just return stuff to the store? Well, they're just trusting that you're honest.
Yeah.
They really are. Amazon, hey, I don't like this. Just, I want to order 13 different sizes. Oh, that's the right size. Return 12 of them. It doesn't matter. There's just a trust factor in everything. It's all about, we just trust that everything's right. In Peru, it's the exact opposite. You walk into the store in Peru and literally you'll walk around and start looking at stuff and somebody will be as far as Alex from me as I'm looking, and he goes, do you need any help? No. I'm just looking. They go, okay. And he stands there the whole time. It's not, and you know why he's there.
Making sure you ain't stealing.
Making sure you ain't stealing nothing. His job is to make sure you're not stealing anything, because the gospel has infiltrated every part of our society. And while a lot of it has been corrupted over time, the truth is that, man, when you decide to live in a place that is predominantly a place where there is not a belief in Jesus Christ as the Savior, the spiritual warfare that happens down there is stuff that most people cannot comprehend. And so it's a daily weight upon people. It's people that decide to move overseas, you ought to take your hat off to them.
Yeah, I do.
And here's what I believe one of the biggest needs is: number one, you ought to love them and you ought to respect them. That's fairly easy. Number two, you ought to support them. They can't go out and just, hey, I want to work a few more hours. And by that, I want to be able to, when we have emergencies, we go, oh, well, I just have to work a little bit more and it'll be okay. Well, most missionaries don't have that.
Yeah.
And then the third thing, I would say the biggest thing, missionaries need friends. And now my best friends are Peruvians. I literally drove over here, 40-minute drive from my house. On my drive over here, I spoke to 3 Peruvian guys that are some of my best friends. Like, hey man, what's up? What's going on? One is a guy that ran a TV station and that we started down in Peru, and another guy was a translator. So we're just, but at the same time, when there's no gospel, you were at a Bible study today. Well, guess how many Bible studies the missionary gets to be a part of? None.
Yeah.
So we live in a day and age where it's easy to communicate. I would encourage you to find a missionary and communicate.
That's amazing.
Let them know I'm praying. Hey man, I love you, man. I'm praying for you.
And that's something we can do in our position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can all do that.
Yeah.
Because I do respect it. And I just, it always seems like something that it just seems so cool, but I knew there had to be, because I think a lot of times you hit something that struck a nerve with me. I think a lot of times we take, because you read the headlines of how bad our country is, I think a lot of times we take for granted the freedom that we have for, religious purposes. Like, we can have a Bible study in our business. We can do these things. And I think a lot of times we take it for granted that there's a church on every corner in this country.
Yeah. We go, any, mini, miny, mo. I think I'll go to that one today.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the entrepreneurship side of it too. Yeah. It's like you just go register at LLC and then
there's so much freedom. There's so much freedom.
Figure the taxes out, but do your thing.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things where you have to understand that a person that leaves America, goes to a country where he does not speak the language, does not know the people, does not have anywhere to really plug in. And he needs, I like calling it, he needs a yoke fellow. I know that most people have no idea what a yoke is, but you put two oxen out to do the plowing, and there's a piece of wood that connects those two people. You need to be the other guy on the other side of that, and you need to listen to the guy cry. And you'd be like, dude, I promise you, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
And it's not hard anymore. Like you can FaceTime a guy. I was talked to a guy in India today. You can talk to them, you can love them, you can be a part of their life. So what I would encourage you to do is that just know what's going on, be a part of their life, and help them just let them know this. Hey, I don't have the answers, but if you're hurting, I'm in that same yoke with you.
Yeah.
You know?
Real quick, guys, this is Rob with the Wheeling Agency. I just wanted to reach out to y'all. We've been in business a little over 3 years here in Paulding County. We take pride in serving our community, so next time you're in the need for some insurance, give us a call and reach out. Now get back to the show.
Man, so I had no idea about a lot of that missionary stuff that you just talked about. And then it's so surprising to me to hear how you were 13, you show up in this country, you don't know the language or anybody, and now you've developed a whole 30 years there. You bring your wife there, all that transgresses, the churches grow, all that. That's amazing. But I guess the next question, how did you end up coming back? If it was, your whole family was down there. How many kids did you guys have while you were in Peru?
So we couldn't have kids at first. We tried to have kids for 8 years, could not have kids. God opened the door for us to be able to adopt 2 children, Jacob and Hannah. Hannah's on a internship in Peru right now.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And so she's down there. And so, but I adopted 2 children, had our 3rd child in Peru. His name's Andrew. And he thinks he's born identity, because he has 2 passports. He has a Peruvian passport and an American passport. So it's like, what passport do I want to use today?
007.
Yeah, 007 there. So anyway, so he was born. And then our last son, and this is what brought us back. Anybody that would have known me, would have known that I'm dying in Peru. Like I love what I do. I just love what I do. There's no way Chris Gardner leaving Peru, that'd be like, Peru might as well just fold up and close up the shop, because Chris ain't leaving there,
Mm-hmm.
And my wife got pregnant. We tried that. We were having our 4th, and she goes to get a sonogram, and the doctor says, your son's going to be born with a cleft lip and palate. Cleft lip where they have a lip, and then they have no lip, and then they have lip over here. So that's the lip. And a lot of people don't understand the palate, but on the inside, it's literally the roof of the mouth. He didn't have one. And so when there's this one thing I say, and it's a little exaggerated, but not much. I tell them, I say, if you want to understand a cleft palate, you could stick your finger in my son's mouth and touch his brain.
Wow.
So everything's exposed. You can just imagine that. So, he wasn't born yet, but we're in Peru, and the doctor's there, and she goes, he's going to be born with a cleft lip and palate. I've always been pretty connected, so I'm calling some doctor friends here in the States, and they say my son's going to be born with a cleft lip and palate. How far? There's no way they can know that. There's no way they can know that. Don't worry about it. No problems. So I come back and go back to the doctor again, and she goes, American doctors are in too big of a hurry. We aren't. She goes, we don't do appointments like they do, appointment. She goes, we make sure that we get to see everything that's going on with a baby. And I'm telling you, this baby's going to be born with a cleft lip and palate. I'll pay your ticket back to the States unless he has a cleft lip and palate. If he does, then you have to pay the ticket. He's going to be born with a cleft lip and palate. And so overnight, our life changed. We had seen dozens and dozens of churches started a radio station, a TV station, a Bible college, an institute, started all kinds of businesses in Peru with young men, had so much stuff going on. And like we were at the top of the pile of this. I mean, if you want to do missions, this is a successful way. This is the way to do it, man. They've got it going on. And I told my wife, I said, am I going to, today's the day that we have to decide whether I've always preached that family comes first, or whether family's going to come first or not, because it's a lot easier to preach than it is to live. Because my life was set. My legacy was set. Everything that I did, it was like, man, this guy. And my wife and I decided that day I was leaving.
Did they not do the surgeries down there like they do here for the?
We decided we decided that's good. You're right. They do surgeries down there. Operation Smile goes down every year. And great organization. They fly in doctors and surgeons. And that year we went to the hospital. My wife's pregnant, haven't had the child yet. And I said, let's just go see if we could get surgeries here. I'll talk to the doctors, the American doctors that come in, and just see what's happening. They had doctors come in from America, from Spain, from different countries around the world. And so I went in, and you know, I knew all the right people, so I knew I could get the surgery if I needed it. But I looked around and there was a lot of kids running around, and I asked the lady, I said, so how many kids need surgery? And she said, right at 860 kids need surgery. And I said, so y'all are going to be able to do 860 surgeries? And she goes, oh, no. We should be able to get 85 of them done. And so I'm watching kids walk around with their faces deformed.
They're just hoping.
They're hoping. And they're not even on the schedule. They're a mama and her son are sitting there with a backpack. And we're sitting there talking to them. Oh, yeah, the doctors go from this city to the other city to the other city. And these people will literally just follow them. And they're broke. Like they don't have money at all. They're broke. And every dime. You talk about the blind man or the lame man that was put through the roof in Jesus' days. That's what they were just sitting there hoping, and they were traveling from city to city to city, hoping that someone did not show up for a surgery, so maybe their kid could have surgery on him.
That breaks my heart.
850 kids, and they were going to be able to do 85 to 90 surgeries. And so I got in a taxi with my wife, and tears streaming down my face, and I said, babe, if I love the Peruvian people, I can't make a Peruvian not get surgery.
Yeah. Because
I would literally have to look and go, I'm sorry, dude. I know the right people. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to get my kids surgery. So because of that, I've got a blue passport and I have insurance in America. And so at that point I had to change. And so everything about my life changed. I went from being a missionary, came back to the States. I'm currently a pastor of a church. And I also became a financial advisor. That's kind of that transition.
I just want to take a time right there and reiterate how you made that decision for your family. You acted it out. And dude, I respect the crap out of that. And I know a lot of people listening to this will too, but it sounds like it was really tough to witness and then to make that move, man. That's huge. So you get back here and you start working with a church, and then
I'm working with a church and also become a financial advisor. I will tell you this.
Which is no light task.
Was that your first job when you got back, was getting into the financial world?
No, well, when I came back, I had thought, 3 surgeries and I'm going back to Peru.
Gotcha. You thought you were going back.
Yeah. But then I was helping a church plant, trying to help them out.
How many surgeries?
Well, he's had 19 so far.
And how old now?
12. And
how is he doing now?
Well, I'll tell you how he's doing. But probably one of the biggest moments of my life was the moment he was born. Yeah. Because I was sitting there going, how am I going to feel?
Yeah.
You know, he's my son. I'm going to love him, but how am I going to feel? Now, man, I wrote a blog post that day, and I said, Lord, will he ever be able to sing to you? His mama sings the most beautiful voice ever. I said, well, will he ever be able to sing to you? He sings every Sunday at church, by the way, on the platform. God, will he ever be able to stand behind a pulpit and talk like I do? Will he ever be able to teach people, like, what's his life going to be like? And I just remember him born, and oh my goodness, I couldn't change it for anything. It's made him a tough kid. It's made him a strong kid. About 5 years ago, he's doing fine now. He's had 19 or 20 surgeries. I say 19, and when he sees this, he's going to say, Dad, it's 20. What's your problem? And he has his 21st one coming up in June, and he probably has 9 or 10 more surgeries to go.
Wow.
Man. Because every time they fix, just think about the inside of the mouth. Mm-hmm. When they fix it and he grows,
they got to go back in.
Got to do it again.
No, we would literally wake up. First 6 months of his life, he didn't sleep more than an hour or two a night because we didn't know, but all the stuff that he had here would go up into his ear and would give him ear infections. We'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd have blood like this right here. It got to the point to where every night I would put him in the car, and I put him in a car seat. I didn't know why I was doing it. I was just like, well, we're going to try this. Put him in a car seat and he could sleep. The reason is because all of the fluids that the roof of your mouth keeps out was going to all the wrong places. Yeah. And so my wife would sleep a little bit she'd sleep at night, and I would literally drive him around all night long.
Y'all remember when I said I was tired? I'm not no more.
I'd drive him around all night long. Mm-hmm. I'd come home at 6 a.m. and I'd be like, babe, I'm sorry, I've got to go to bed. And so I'd sleep 3 or 4 hours, and then I'd get up and I'd work. But he's had 19 or 20 surgeries, has 9 or 10 left to go. And it's funny now, you'll tell him, hey, Joshua, we got another, he doesn't do this anymore because he's too big and tough for it. But we used to go, Joshua, you have another surgery tomorrow. And surgery is really rough when they're babies.
Yeah.
They put what they call nums or something like that. Where they operate on his mouth. And then the worst part's not that they operated on his mouth. Like, he's cut up and sewed up in so many places. You're looking at it, you're like, oh my goodness. And then he comes out and they put these sleeves on him from here to here that have metal down them. Because if he did this, guess what would happen? So not only,
because he's a baby.
Not only is he sitting there just having surgery and in all kinds of pain, but now
he's in a metal straitjacket.
It's almost like a dog when they put the thing on
exactly
his head.
as a baby. So he's a tough kid. I told him, I said, my wife and I would be like, hey, we just talked to the doctor. You're going to have another surgery. It's going to happen here in 2 weeks. And here's what he says. His first question is, Dad, can it not happen in the summertime? He wants to miss school. He wants to miss school.
Oh, yeah.
And then the second thing is, he goes, Dad, am I going to be able to eat ice cream for breakfast? We're like, yeah, you can eat ice cream for breakfast. So let's go.
That's awesome.
That's where he does it. But probably the one of the turning points in my life was probably hurt as bad as anything that's ever hurt me. Joshua comes into my office and he's talking. He can't talk perfectly, he's not. He still does speech therapy from yesterday he was there at 5 p.m. Trying to make sure that he can talk better. And he's standing in front of me. He's about 7 years old, and he's standing there in front of me, and he goes, and says something to me, and I played it off. I go, son, you know how stupid your dad is, right? And he smiles, and I go, I didn't get that. I asked him 3 or 4 times. I didn't get it. I said, hey, Jacob, come here. I said, Jacob, can you help me? You know how dumb I am. Help me. Joshua, could you say that again? And he said it again. And Jacob looks at me and he goes, Hannah, come here. Hannah comes in. Hannah goes, Andrew, come here. Andrew comes in. They all left the room. And I said, buddy, I'm so sorry. Can you try it again? And literally, it was like somebody sucker punched him. He put his arms down, put his head down. Tears started streaming down his face. And he said, Daddy, I'd do anything if you could just understand me. And of course, you can understand that one perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Turned around and walked out. And I was like, oh, my goodness. So he's a tough kid, man. He's just a tough kid. And he's 12 years old now, not afraid of anything. One of the most courageous young men I know of. And I cannot wait to see what God does with his life, because he's going to be a testimony.
Dude, he is.
What a
some pretty
powerful
amazing
story
stuff.
already.
And we always talk about the adversity and that the struggles we go through being they are part of your path. And dude, he's going to have a heck of a story one day. Yeah. And you already do. That's part of it. So it's safe to say that the move back to America was all worth it, just to give those Peruvian people what they needed. And then also
and to
get
him
this for your son. Yeah.
Absolutely.
For your son, give him the
So he's had 19, 20 surgeries. He's he's going to be fine. And but it did go from me having a very stable income to me having nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've taken 20 years of my life, because 5 of them I was a kid with my dad, but I've taken 20 years of my life and built up, I don't even like the word, but the career. Yep. I was very well known in that career. I was very good at that career.
Networked
and everybody was, we support and giving us money to make sure that we could do what we did. And and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, never mind. How about restarting now?
Yeah.
And so that's when I became a financial advisor. And it's really cool, because now I get to talk to people today that have more than enough. They're just sitting there going, I'm not worried about retirement. And they're going, so if you were in my shoes, what kind of places would you be giving money to? And I'm like, I get to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world? So, because I've been to 38 countries around the world. I've seen the needs all over the world. I know what's going on. I know what's going on here. And so now I get to talk to people about, not only am I a recipient, but now I get to sit on the other side of the table, not just me giving, but me giving advice, helping people do what they want to do to reach their goals and to be able to live the legacy, not just leave it.
Yeah.
And so
I love how the spiritual side meets with the career side there. And
That's what we're always trying to line up, man.
Yeah, I can attest to that. And I still remember when Chris and I first met, we sat down and Chris basically sat across the table and was like, okay, your name? Alex said, okay, how old are you? Whatever, okay. What do you like to do? And I was like, well, I like business. And I think we talked about, like, I think you gave me a book to read or something. And next thing I know, he was like, you know, me and you're going to be friends and we're probably going to hang out like the rest of your life and the rest of mine. And I was like,
probably the rest of mine, not the rest of yours.
Yeah. Well, I tried to say that the right way, but I was like, awesome, man. Because who doesn't want another mentor in their life? So I love how you lean into all the spiritual side. And I love how you just say, I became a financial advisor. Like you didn't have to study like for 80 hours or probably 800 hours. Like those, I've looked into those licenses. They're tough to get. So I want to talk more about, you know, how you kind of built a life where, you know, you are mixing your spiritual with the business and stuff, and how not only fulfilling that must feel, but also like, what did it take to get to that point? Like you were always in mission, so you probably felt a certain purpose, but it's hard to connect those two things. Like I know a lot of people that maybe want that life, but they're like, hey, I'm not going to go, you know, be a pastor, but I would like to do something about that. So how did you know to do that? Or is it kind of went along and it happened?
Yeah. So, you know, I would say that, I feel like today I am in ministry way more than I did even when I was in missions.
Wow.
Because my job every day is listening to people, adding value to people's lives. And my clients know me, that I'm the weirdest financial advisor ever, because you'll call me up and I'm like, hey man, so Rob, what can I pray for you about this week? What's going on in your life? Man, that sounds rough. How can I pray for you about that? What can we do about this? So I know the intimate details of people's lives just like a good pastor does. Yeah. And so I get to do that now. And so I believe that a career and a calling can be the same thing. Mm. And so I do believe that I'm following my calling. I worked somewhere before now that did not line up with my calling at all. Mm. But it was like, hey, I'll do this and this. So it was two separate things. And while I enjoyed it, I was doing two separate things. I was pastoring a church in Marietta, Georgia, while at the same time doing this career. Now I have a career and a calling that are all combined. They're the same thing. And so we're looking, it's like, hey, I try and help Christians give money away. You know, you want to give money away? I want to help you do that. It's just God led me, and I just followed each step of the way, and I've watched God. Now, each turn of events has not been easy.
No, it never is.
But guess what? Nobody tells stories about the perfect vacation they went on. No. Hey, man, I went down to Mexico. It's perfect. Great food. Yep. Great. That's the dumbest story ever. The stories we love telling are, man, I went down and I did this and this went wrong and this went wrong.
And then we did this.
Yeah. And when I was skydiving, I was like, it's the stress that we like telling about.
Yeah.
After the event is over.
I feel that today. I told 9 people today how everything in my day got screwed up, but you don't tell them when you had a good day.
Exactly.
Like,
of course
perfect
not.
day.
Today I had a perfect day. Yeah. Everything went good. No problems at all. So, you know, as the stressors come along in life, you've got to go and you've got to just say, listen, I have to ask myself, do I really believe when God said that all things work together for good? Do I believe that or not? Mm. And people say, well, God never gives you anything you can't handle. And to that, I say, I don't know what fairy tale book you got that out of, but it wasn't the Bible.
Yeah, it's not in there.
Because He gives us stuff. He
I've
on
made
purpose.
that mistake of quoting that, and they're like, "It's not in there." I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll quit."
You have whoever said that to you is a good friend.
He is.
God doesn't give you more than you can handle. No. God always gives you more than you can handle.
Yeah.
Always. Why? Because when you have more than you can handle, then you have to depend on someone else.
It's like that saying with the He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
Equips the called.
Yeah, same deal.
Yeah, so you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know how to handle this. Well, good, get on your knees. It's about time you've been on your knees.
That's right.
Start praying and start asking me, and then you go, I'm so glad I couldn't handle that because I needed His wisdom.
That's right.
I needed what He was doing. So,
and you said
we've watched God do some cool stuff.
a lot of cool stuff, it sounds like. And you said a key word for me earlier, and you said value add, man. And I just want to say that that's something that you've been a huge value add to my life. And that's something that we strive through this show to do, you know, each and every day.
I appreciate it.
What would you say, because it's kind of cool for me that you've had a successful missionary background. What lessons, what could you share that led to success? Because, you know, that was a big part of your life, Peru. Yeah. What were some nuggets that led to your success? Because you were very successful in your past career before you got here. Yeah. And now you're obviously finding success quick in your new journey. What are some nuggets that the people can take away that led to that success there?
I would say, I like how Paul puts it in the letter to the Corinthians. I think it's the second one. He says, by the grace of God, I am what I am. Okay. At the end of it, he says, because it's all by his grace that I am what I am. But in the middle, he says, but I worked harder than anybody else did. I labored more abundantly than them all. He said, it was the grace of God. But man, I didn't sit down and go, God, send me stuff. He's like, no, I went out and I just did everything I could to get stuff done. So it's the grace of God. Absolutely 100%, no doubt about it. It's the grace of God that I am where I'm at. But there's been very few people who have labored harder than I have. But it was the grace of God.
He gave you the ability to labor, but
and gave you a why, gave you something to labor for.
Yeah. And so you know, a lot of things that helps. Number one, you realize that, like, I know what it's like to show empathy and to care about people in all kinds of cultures, whether it's up in Maine, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, California, Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Those are different cultures, my friend.
Yeah.
But I've been around all of them, and so I've been able to know how to show empathy for that and show concern for that and pray for that. And then I go to a foreign land where I've got to do it in Spanish with rich people, with poor people. So it helped me know how to care for people and how to love people. Wow. I'd say that was a big part of it. The biggest part of my job, I tell people, I am a broker of trust. I just have to live a life where people can trust that what I say is what I do. Because my business is not a transactional business. No. It's not where you go, oh, thank you for buying that. I just made money. That's not the way it happens. In my business, it's trust. And through that trust, the funny thing is, people used to make fun of me because I was the tech guy. I like photography, I like video, and I like audio, and I studied audio engineering, and so I love doing all that kind of stuff. And I would help people here in the States. They'd be like, hey man, I'm trying to do this. I'll go over to your house and help you for free. And so I'd go over to their house and spend hours, and people would say, Chris, you're the dumbest person ever. You could have made so much money for doing that. The funny thing is, the people that I helped that way, I just loved them and tried to help them. I never thought anything was coming out of it. And then I come back to the station, I'm like, I'm a financial advisor. And they go, hey, can you take my money, please? Hey, I got a friend. Can you take their money? Because we built trust.
That's powerful.
And I think that comes from the fact that our job is not to inspect fruit. Our job is not to walk around and go, hey, what kind of results? What kind of results? What kind of results? We need fruit. We need goals. We need to be looking at what we want to do. But if we spend too much time in that, we don't have time to plant seeds.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest things for me was this: just plant seeds. Plant seeds. Plant seeds. And so in Galatians 6, he says, in Galatians chapter 6, Paul says, he says, be not weary in well-doing. He says, don't get tired of doing the right thing, because in due season, by the way, that word due, I don't like it, because it's what he thinks is the right season, not what I think.
That's right.
Because, you know, everything for me should have been done yesterday.
Yeah.
In due season, you're going to reap if you faint not. But my job is not to inspect. My job is to plant seeds, add value, add value. And then one day somebody calls you up and is like, hey, Chris, I'm selling a business and I'm going to have $20 million. I don't know what to do with it. Can you help me? I've already proved to be faithful in the small things, hopefully, to where when they have the big things come up, I'm still the guy that they go to. So it's about honesty. It's about trust. Yes. It's about integrity. Yes. It's about being who you say you are, because, man, running your mouth is so easy. Yeah. But living that life is not, you know.
And that's something that I can agree with you 1,000%. And, you know, my business, I really respect the people that have high character that I do business with, and you want to do more business with them.
Yeah.
And, I obviously fall short, but I try to be, a good person, like with high character. And I think that's, especially with us in our business, we have so many people that are with us just because they appreciate our character. And that's something that we really try to work on. Because I think you said it right. A lot of times in business, I think we can have selfish desires. I think we can think about what's in it for us. And a lot of times, you said it right, adding value. That's more serving. That's more in that vein of like serving them and then letting the fruit come. Like just putting your head down and throwing those seeds out and not really looking back at the harvest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just let the harvest happen.
Yeah.
But just keep planting those seeds.
And then everybody's going to say, how did you get such a great harvest? And you're like, not really sure. I just planted a bunch of seeds. That's all.
I
That's
just
all.
kept chunking seeds, man. Some fell on some good soil.
What I have found is this: when you add value to people, people value value. Okay, what do I mean by that? When you add value to people, people value value. There's a difference between cost and value. Okay, people don't call me to ask me how much it costs for me to be their advisor, because they know the value that I bring to the table. You don't ask to buy a brand new Lexus for $10,000. If you're wanting to buy a brand new Lexus, you know that when you buy a brand new Lexus, you're like, I'm not buying a brand new Lexus because I want something dependable. You're going, I want something nice.
Yeah.
So when you go out to buy that, I want the luxury. So when you go out there, you're like, I know that I can get 4 wheels and a motor that takes me nicely to another place, but there's a difference between the price and the value. And many financial advisors, they're sitting there and they go, man, everybody's like so worried about. The only reason they are is because you've not added enough value.
That value.
Because if you add enough value, then they value your value, not your cost.
That's good.
And so if you have good, I know you guys work in the insurance world. If you give good value, nobody's calling around and shopping prices and going, I'm going to save $13.22 every year going with this other person, so I'm going to change insurance companies. They're going to go, for $13, am I going to go to another person?
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to add that value.
That's right. I can call Rob anytime to get a free hat. I'm staying here.
Yeah, exactly.
And that goes back to the character and integrity piece as well. It's just the character that you provide, the integrity you provide. It's going to make it where your record isn't diminished. And then they say, hey, Chris, he's been a good guy for 10 years, like back when he did my audio equipment. He's been a good guy for 20 years. I'd like to give him a shot on moving my money around or helping me give the right way or whatever. So I love that. And integrity is something we strive daily to do.
A man is only as good as his word. We've heard it so many times, but I saw a post today. Somebody was talking about somebody on Facebook who has, done a lot of bad stuff to several different people. And that dude's name is ruined now. So it's like, your reputation, I don't know who said it, but there's something like you could build this lifetime legacy and ruin it in one day by not having that character. So that's something that I think you constantly have to have in the back of your mind of like, am I truly in this for the right reason? Am I not in this for selfish desires? Something that I want to ask you too before we move out of this, because a lot of guests will come on and when we take our break, they're like, man, I'm just talking, and that's what we want. And you even said it. You said, I feel like I'm talking too much. And we're like, no, we want you to talk. But something that I love about you is that in the experiences that we've had, you really do try to talk less. And you really do try to ask, provoking questions to me and when we're with Alex about our life. And I respect that because that's something that I truly try to do. I personally feel like if you talk more in the conversation, that you lost that conversation.
Sure.
So talk about that a little bit because you're so good at that.
Yeah. Well, when I'm talking to people, I do a lot of coaching now for people that do sales and for people that do a business like mine even. And what I tell them, one of the things that I like to be very clear on is this. The nobody cares about your solutions. Everyone cares about their problems. Wow. Okay. So they don't care about your solutions. People come to me and they're like, hey, Chris. And I'm like, oh, well, what you need to do here is, when the CARES Act passed and this right here, this change and this, they don't care about that. And so if I'm not careful, I'm talking and they're like, I didn't even really want that. So what I have found, 90% of my closes happen when I go, so tell me more about that. There was a study done, a psychological study done the other day that stated that even when you present someone with facts that are indisputable facts. If they already believe something, when you present them with indisputable facts, it's called caging. They cage off and they go, nope, that can't be true. That can't be true. By the way, if you watch news, you'll see the polarization in news that shows that. Because this channel says it this way, this channel says it this way.
Right.
They're polar opposites, and you either believe that one or that one, and you cage off the truth on the other side. That's so the reason I say that is this. Somebody comes to you and you go, and you go, well, let me tell you the answer. They don't care about your answer.
Yeah. They just want to be heard.
They want to be heard.
They
They want to be heard.
empathy.
They want the, So your number one job before anything and before anybody you work with, number one job is this: listen. You cannot understand someone if you do not listen. The problem is this: I could literally probably nail each of y'all's financial situation within 10% today without knowing anything about you.
Wow.
You know why? Because I've talked to a lot of people your age, a lot of people your age, a lot of people your age. I've talked to a lot of people in your business, so I'm going, I know exactly where they're at. You can't jump in with that. You got to hear it like it's the very first time. So tell me more.
Yeah.
Really? Wow. That's incredible.
And what I love about that attitude, people that I talk to in business and outside of business everywhere, they say they run out of energy. But when you take that attitude towards it, towards a person, towards the thing, the energy is easier to hold on to when you can perform a genuine interest or think about it as a more overarching perspective. Like, you don't have to go in and say, I need to sell this guy an insurance policy, or I'm driving to Italy. I don't know what, I made all that up. But all I'm saying, there's hovercrafts now, man.
Chitty chitty bang bang. You know, and that the car that flew and was on the
But my point being is that, you know, whenever you have a situation that arises, I kind of lost it. So hopefully we can cut that out. So thanks, man. The chitty chitty bang bang got me, dude. Like that chitty chitty bang bang got me.
Here's the deal. The deal is this: they don't care what you know until they know how much you care.
Ooh, that's heat.
They do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. They cannot know how much you care until you listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's impossible to care without listening. And so, like I won't give away. Like I have tricks that I use when I'm talking to somebody because I like talking. But I've got tricks that I use to make sure that I'm measuring how much I'm talking because I don't need to talk as much. I need to listen. Here's the funny thing. I told you that I could nail where you're at within 10% probably on each of y'all. The truth of the matter is that 10% doesn't matter. Because if I'll let you talk, you're going to tell me stuff that matters to you that he doesn't even know about and he doesn't know about. You'll tell me stuff. Why? Because I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to ask questions. Yeah. When you get to that point, I call a client up. At my previous place where I worked, everybody would be like, why do all of your clients just do what you tell them to do? I'm like, because they trust me.
Yeah.
I call them up and I'm like, hey, I think you might want to consider. And they're like, do you think I should consider that? Yeah. You think I should consider it or do it? I think you should do it. But I had to say consider it. They go, done, do it.
Yeah.
You know, but why? Because they trust you. But trust is built on listening. So that my number one job is listening. The number one gauge that I have after I finish a meeting is not whether I sold a product. Okay, number one, I don't sell products. But if I were to, my number one goal is not whether I signed a client up. My number one thing that I always ask myself is how much did I talk? How much did they talk?
Yeah.
If it's not about 75-25, I'm not happy.
Wow.
Like I want you to talk 75% of the time and me talk 25% of the time. The second thing I want to ask is this: did I add value? Mm-hmm. Do they know that I added value? Do they know that I added value? Because you need to be competent in your job. You need to be confident in your job. But you need to do all of that on top of the foundation of listening and caring for the people that you're with. Yeah. And honestly, if I talk to people, they become my clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
It's like,
and that's with every area of your life, man. We got a lot of youngins that listen to this podcast, but like even when you're trying to attract your wife, when you're trying to do these things and just be a good friend, like truly listening and caring about the other person, because the world that we live in, man, it's just like a lot of people are in their own bubble and only care about what's going on in their life, and they don't really truly listen to you. Yeah. I love the conversations that I have with people like you where it's like a battle of who's going to talk less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my pastor, Brad, shout out Brad, I love you, Brad. But we sit in the sauna, and by the end of it, I'll be like, man, I'll send you a bill for my therapy session, because he's so good. He just gets me talking. Like, and I just respect people like that that can just really just listen.
Yeah.
And
It's
such a
gonna
powerful.
it's gonna be a superpower in the next 30,
It's a
40 years. The
superpower.
attention spans are lowering. The people, like, we want things instantly.
Everybody's text happy these days. too.
Texting, it's gonna
there's
be a
distractions,
superpower.
Artificial intelligence cannot take empathy away.
Correct.
That's true.
Artificial intelligence can, but let me just say, artificial intelligence can do a lot of stuff, but it's not going to take empathy away. It's not going to take someone caring for somebody else away. So because of that, hone that skill, because that skill really does matter.
Amen.
Hone
That's
that
good.
skill.
Man, I know I've asked you a lot of questions, but I
No, I love
just love picking your brain. What would you say, because we do have a lot of young people that are just trying to figure out what they want to do in life. What would you say, regardless of, because you have went the ministry route, you have went, lived in a different country, now you're finding success here. So, there's so many options of things to do in this world, but what would you say are some key traits that would lead to success, regardless if you're going to be a plumber, regardless if you're going to be an insurance agent, regardless if you're going to be a missionary? What do you think are some key traits that have led to your success, deeper than just listening?
You're going to be the sum of what you're reading and the people you're hanging out with and the places you go. So the first thing I would tell somebody is, anybody that makes great money is a leader. The number one rule of a leader is that leaders are readers. Get around people that are going to help you grow. And so I've never sat down with Dale Carnegie, but man, he has helped me out a lot.
Yeah. Amen.
I've never sat down with Dan Sullivan. Oh my goodness, that guy has helped me a lot. I've never sat down with James Clear, but goodness gracious, he has helped me a lot. I've never sat down with a Carl Richards, but man, he's helped me. Seth Godin has helped me. Do you realize the privilege that we have? It used to be when I was in Peru, go back to ministry. When I was in Peru, I'd want to preach on the book of Ephesians. I would have to call somebody and say, hey, can you go by the local bookstore, the Christian bookstore, tell me what commentaries there are on the book of Ephesians so that you can buy them for me and ship them down to me 6 months later so that I can then start studying for the book of Ephesians. You realize in our hands what we carry nowadays?
Yeah.
We ought to be ashamed of what we carry in our hands. You say, why ashamed? We ought to be ashamed because we have so much and we take so little advantage of it.
Yeah, we're just on TikTok looking at goats passing out.
I love how Neil Postman says it in his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. The Orwell book was 1981, 1984, where he talks about, hey, the world is going to control what you see and what you consume.
Wow.
And that's what he said. The world's going to control
He saw
that.
that coming.
But it didn't happen. You think about it, because what blew my mind was this: it never happened. That can we not find the opposite opinion of whatever the government wants to tell us? We'll find the opposite opinion. All we got to do is go on Twitter go on Facebook or wherever. He said they're going to control, so they're going to constrict, so you won't have too much information. Neil Postman wrote in Amusing Ourselves to Death in 1985, by the way, which is kind of funny. He wrote that book in 1985 after the year of 1984. He wrote the book in 1985, and he said, what's going to happen is not that they're going to control it. What's going to happen is that they're going to bombard us with so much stuff that we will lose the sensitivity and the ability to discern what is really important.
Wow.
That's where we're at.
That's true.
That is
so true.
It's like,
because there's so much hitting you. There's so many distractions.
How do you find that needle in the haystack that is the truth?
Yeah.
You are bombarded by so much stuff.
Well, that's
You're
why
amusing.
these generations need mentors like you, like us, like people that are willing to listen.
The thing, you just said it, the mentor, the Dale Carnegie, all these people that we've read, John Maxwell, he's changed all of our life. You share his quotes all the time, and it's like, man, leaders are readers. I love that so much because it's changed my life. And this is coming from a guy who had a terrible GPA. I didn't read a book in high school, but I got out of it and I learned quickly, like, wow, there's all these cheat codes. These guys who have found success will literally just tell you their life story, and all you got to do is read a book in 2 weeks, and you'll know all their secrets.
Yeah.
It really is a cheat code.
And the danger and the danger in what we're saying is this: people will hear this and they're going to go, "I'm not a reader, and man, I've done great." And when they say that, what they don't understand is they are self-limiting themselves.
Correct.
They're doing great because they're smart. They're doing great because they're adding value to people's lives.
They have great work ethics. They have
Absolutely.
the potential's just higher. The potential's just higher.
Well, I make more money than these guys do, so I don't need to do the. No, if you're making more than these guys do and you've not read, Lord help me, do some reading, because if you do, you're going to smoke the entire world. Sit at the feet of the greats. Sit at the feet of the greats. The Dale Carnegies, the John Maxwell. I'm a certified John Maxwell coach. Why? Because at the age of 15 or 16, my dad gave me my first Maxwell book.
Wow.
He said, start reading books like this.
What was it?
I think it was Today Matters.
That's cool.
I don't remember. I'm not sure because you know what happened after I finished the first one? My dad was like, "There's a second one."
Yeah. And now he's
the
got
third
like
one.
65 or
Oh,
there's
no.
a ton of them. There's
83, as I think was the last count that he talked about in March that he's written. The 16 laws, the 16 irrefutable laws of communication just came out, and he's about to put another book out. You'd say, how do you know he's about to put another book out? Because his name's John Maxwell.
He's still
That's
alive.
the story he's in.
Yeah, he's still alive.
I was at this conference in March, and he's up front talking, and so take advantage of redeem the time. Can you imagine sitting across the table from an Albert Einstein?
Yeah. Or Benjamin Franklin.
Or Benjamin Franklin. Or Theodore Roosevelt. Whoever, I don't care who it is. Any of the people that you know their names, can you imagine sitting across the table from them and saying, you had access to this. I have access to this. That's what you accomplished. And I don't want to talk about what I didn't accomplish. You know, so take advantage of it. We spend so much of our time on things like TikTok watching fainting goats.
Yeah.
Cool, watch it. I mean, watch a video of a fainting goat. That's fine, but make sure that you prioritize your time. Priorities differentiate leaders from those that are not. You knowing how to prioritize what is truly important and what truly matters. Yeah. And so prioritize the right things. I would.
Dude, that's so good.
And people say, "Well, I'm not you can do podcast. You can do
YouTube.
You do the right YouTube. Yeah, you can do YouTube.
You can watch Pave the Way.
You can watch Pave the Way. Exactly. That's the
Good
number
plug.
one. No, but it is. It's that I watch Pave the Way. It's one of my podcasts. I listen to you listen to y'all do your round table about your morning rituals. It was yesterday or the day before. I listened to it. It adds value to my life. But here's what I have decided is this. I will not be spending much time at all on anything in my life that does not add value.
That's good.
I love that, man.
If I have friends that don't add value, they're not too close anymore.
Yeah.
Because adding value matters.
Well, dude, Chris, thank you for adding value.
Thank you, my friend.
And making Pave the Way even better show. Hey guys, if you like our show, thank you so much for commenting, sharing, subscribing, everything. It's a blessing. And thank you guys for tuning in.
Appreciate y'all.